Joined by KTVU political analyst Brian Sobel. Brian, let's begin with what President Biden said today, leveling sanctions against Russia. Do they go far enough?
Julie, we will only see over the next few days. I am troubled, as many other people are who have studied military history and do political analysis, about what the long-range goals are for Vladimir Putin. But it doesn't look good for Ukraine right now because of the presence of so many Russian troops on essentially three sides of Ukraine. And so whether sanctions imposed by the president will be enough to convince Vladimir Putin to either truncate what he has in mind or to pull back is open to question. But the next few days are going to be very perilous.
Yeah, Brian, this crisis reached a whole new level today. We are in uncharted territory. Just how dangerous is this situation?
The danger, Julie, is that it escalates in a way where there's a confrontation between, as an example, the Russians and perhaps Germans, French, even U.S. forces. If that happens, this takes this crisis into a whole other area because it will task the president and the presidents of other countries and prime ministers to decide how to respond. And so anytime you have a military on a border, as it is right now with the Russians on the border of Ukraine, and frankly, in a couple of the separatist states in the Donbass region, you have a situation where a miscalculation can really be a start to something that we may not be able to get our arms around very quickly.
How much do you think Americans are paying attention, and why should average Americans care about what's happening in Ukraine?
Well, we're not paying enough attention, frankly. This is a major issue. A lot of times we in the United States say, well, that's in Eastern Europe. We don't have to worry about that. But it's what it portends for the future. Vladimir Putin is a product of the old Soviet Union, Julie, and that's what he knows and wants. And so Ukraine is just one up on the list. The Baltic states, other countries in that region, they're in the line of sight of Vladimir Putin. And because of that, Eastern Europe and Europe in general is threatened. And Americans ought to take it very, very seriously. And we ought to hope that the administration can find some touch points such that the Russians and Vladimir Putin decide it isn't wise to move any further. But they look like they've got the trigger ready to pull.
Okay, Brian, let's talk about the broader implications of this conflict for us here at home. What are the likely impacts on oil, gas, and food prices here in the U.S., and the possibility it will cause inflation to rise even more?
All of these things, Julie, have an effect on the American economy. That's why it's important to Americans. You may have watched, I'm talking to the viewers, the stock market today to see how jittery the stock market is about what's going on. That has an effect. It's inflationary. It has a potential to affect gas prices and so many other things. That's why it's really, really important for Americans to pay attention, and frankly, the whole world to pay attention to this and to try to find a way to have Vladimir Putin decide that the best course of action is not a war. Because if it is a war, I think Ukraine will suffer terribly. There will be a lot of Russians who suffer as well. But Ukraine could be really altered irreparably for the next decade.
Yeah, before I let you go, you said we all need to pay attention to what's happening. You know, China and Iran are watching. If Putin continues to move deeper into Ukraine, what message does that send to the rest of the world?
It says that Taiwan is now a country that, and of course that's a whole other debate, but a country that China may wish to grab because they look at the world and see it as feckless, being unable to really exert its authority. Same for Iran and what's going on in the Middle East. This situation right now in Ukraine, on the border of Ukraine, has worldwide implications for many things, Julie, and it bears watching very, very closely.
Yeah, and we're all bracing for what could happen next. Brian Sobel, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Julie.